Give you a brief overview and I'm going to move forward. Me and my homeboy, his name was Killer. We went to this job in Queens called Fresh Direct. It's a food delivery company in New York. In New York, people get their groceries delivered to their door. Went up there. They're having a massive orientation. It's a room kind of like this size. Everybody's filling out applications. The process is going, right? So I fill out my application. I get to that question. Have you been convicted of a felony? Such a dilemma for a man who just wants to make his way out the hood, because what do you do when you get to this question? They teach us in the programs I've been in as I grew up and when I did my time to check yes. Because if you check no and later on they find out that you lied, automatic termination, right? So I checked yes. So my boy Killer, this is almost like a social experiment. My boy Killer checked no. Because he just like, man, I'm trying to get up there. No, let them find out, right? So all of a sudden the process is moving along, right? So they separate us by groups. They're like, okay, Mr. Moon, Mr. this and that, Mr. that, y'all get over here. And my boy, they put him over there. So I'm like, oh, we going to the next step of the interview. Yeah, let's go, right? So as we're walking, everything is starting to look familiar to me. And follow along with me. We're walking down the hallway, down the corridor. And I'm like, damn, this looked like the way we walked in. These people got to the front door, opened the front door, and said, thank y'all for coming out. Every person that checked yes to that question got instantly walked out that room to the front door. When I got to that door, when I realized what was going on, I'm about to tell you, boy, it was about to be some Paterson stuff going to happen up in there. Because when I figured out that they was playing me, I was like, oh man, I'm about to, oh y'all, yeah, y'all gonna see, you feel me? But I'm like, I'm in New York, I don't want to, you know, Rikers, they can have that. But it taught me something, and a little later on, my boy Killer, he must have figured it out, where he see that I didn't make it to where he was like, you know, all of a sudden he ends up in the front, he's like, yo, what happened? I'm like, dog, they treated us like the trash, man. Everybody, because I began to ask people like, yo, what you check to the question? What you check? I checked yes, I checked yes. They booted us out. So this is something where I can't say that everybody can be a writer. You understand? The only thing that really separates me and most of my homeboys in the street is that I have the ability to articulate what I'm feeling, what I learned. If some of them could tell you, they probably would tell you themselves, but they may not have the words, you understand? Or the knowledge to express this story. Because there's a lot of brothers out there that have been through a lot worse than me. So what do these two situations teach me as they're leading up to the book? I said, man, you want to leave the streets, but society won't let you forget what you've done. So you have to come up with something brand new. So as I begin to write, I'm writing the end of 2009. I started in December 2009. By the end of January 2010, the book was completed. And trust me, when I wrote it by hand, because I'm not a typer, I'm not computer savvy at all, I still write old school. I write a whole book by hand. You understand? When I started with the book, it was a massive process. You know, once it got publicated, you know what I'm saying, it come down a little bit, but it was such a process, but it literally poured out of me. It wasn't even a situation where I had to put much thought to it. I would sit at that book and literally write for hours on end, day after day, just going through the processes of my mind, searching everything I did along the way, following the breadcrumbs, and what it led to was the book. But something else that happened while I was writing that forced me to rush the book. And yes, I will admit, this book been out since 2010, by the way. It ain't like, you know, nothing new. It's new to those who haven't read it. Dynamic story, 100% real and accurate. I'm like, you know, but what forced me to get it out, because as Jay Sean will tell you, it's such a process, such a tedious process to write it, then get it printed in a certain format, then get it printed. You got to pay for all these steps. So I'm just saying to myself at the time, as I'm writing and getting towards the finishing line, I got to get this thing out because it's now 2010. And in 2010, babies are dying. And when I say babies, you know, I'm not saying like a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old is a baby, but in the grand scheme of life, as far as evolution and education and becoming a man, I didn't fully begin to gain common sense as a man until I was about 27. Maybe I'm slow, you understand? I don't know, but the same man standing before you was not the man on the streets. You know, I always had a sense of morals. You know what I mean? I was not like some savage killer, you understand? I believe in self-defense. I will defend myself vigorously. You are not just going to hurt me, and anybody can tell you. You understand? But the point is, as I'm getting towards the finish line of this book, and I'm like, oh, I can sit on it a little while, I'll put it out in December, but I'm following the newspaper from Paterson as I'm sitting into my living room, and I see young brother, 16, shot and killed, another 16-year-old, shot and killed, guns ruled the street, baby gangsters. And in the midst of the final, what made me run that book out the door was when this young man, Jose Ruiz, on 12th Avenue and Rosa Parks Boulevard, 14 years old, was shot in the face in 2014, shot in the face in front of the store. So something about that was like, boop, everything went blank after that. I said, that's it, I'm done. This book is getting out, the information is getting out. Whatever I can do to save lives, I'm gonna do it, because there's no way in hell that I'm gonna sit in my house proud to be a blood gang member when babies are dying. I was not brought up, was not designed to be a part of something that was gonna result in the killing of children. Should I have known better from the beginning? Maybe so. But as you learn in my book, it's a transformation, a wave that came across this city that if you weren't there or you don't realize what it was, you can't relate. When blood got to Paterson in the late 90s, welcome. No problem. When blood started to trickle in to Paterson in the late 90s, we thought it was a joke at first. I explained this in the book as well. We used to look at, we were young at that time, maybe I'm 18, 17, and we're looking at the older brothers who now wearing red bandanas and red everything, and we like what y'all dudes think y'all at California or something? We ain't rocking with that. We got the Pound, we got CCP, we got A-Raw, you understand? We got MSD, we got our crews, we got our cliques, man, we good with that. Before I can even begin to ask too many questions, the transformation had already begun, because like fire, like lightning, like a virus. You understand, when a virus attacks your body, it hits you and it moves fast and it cripples you. So I can honestly tell y'all, Paterson, New Jersey, not really New York either, but they had it longer than us. They had blood, OG Mack and them bought blood up there in like 93, but my point, the East Coast was not ready for this wave of a super gang that came rushing in. And when I tell you it came rushing in like a wave, it came in like a wave and wiped through the whole city, to the point where even established gangs, even the guys in Earths and the NOI and everything else we had in the 90s, they were overwhelmed. It was like, whoa, 1 minute is peace, God. Now there's wisdom, understanding. Next thing is like, blah, boom, blood popping, what's good? You understand? And you've seen brothers begin to form over, even the 5% brothers, everybody. You understand? It was many who jumped on the wave from the door and said, man, this blood thing is a new wave, I'm running with it. But there were others who were against it. Oh yeah, it was literally a fight for the city. And I explained that in my first book. It takes you through everything I'm telling you now, how it started from its inception until now, almost 15 years later. And the point is, people at first, different blocks. I remember when Bloods, so-called, wasn't allowed on North Main. North Main was one of the blocks. Now, I gotta be honest, it's blood-ridden now, but this is in the late 90s, right? They were one of the blocks who were like, man, we're not doing that blood stuff out here. This was them. You couldn't go over there. You're a blood, you put your bandana on and go over there. You understand? It was a situation where a sister blood, a female, wearing her bandana, North Main, late 90s, the brothers down there took a bandana off, threw it to the ground. We ain't doing that blood stuff out here. Now, that was how they felt at the moment. I can tell you as quick as I tell you this, that incident led to a subsequent shooting. You understand? The response was, whoa, you ain't just gonna snatch no flags off, boom, 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 boom. There you go. So right then and there, you begin to see how the game's changing and how the game's gonna be played in Paterson. Because now you're going from knowledge, peace, wisdom, understanding, peace, and everything that we was in the 90s that had some, reason to it, until everything is gang mayhem. And if you wonder why Paterson is so violent today, it shouldn't be a question as to why, if you know your history, if you understand what happened. Because this was a transformation that came in, and now we're 15 years deep in it. So take your most gang-ridden city or state, and you're looking at Paterson.